Hello, welcome back to Michael at Trauma Companions. In my last video, I introduced you to the Pastoral Conversation. Now, if you remember, that's a conversation in which we contain our curiosity. We contain all of our questions. Any thought of giving advice or solutions or offering people fixes, platitudes, silver linings, sharing experiences. We contain all of those elements in the pastoral conversation. Now, if you recall, the pastoral conversation typically takes place in the pit. Now, you remember what the pit was? The pit was the image we use of someone who was in a deep place, a dark place, in a crisis, undergoing some sort of traumatic event. It could be something that's happening right now, or they might be sharing with you something that's happened in their past. The pit is that place where we keep our past brokenness, wounds, traumas. It's a place that we tend not to want to look at too often or think about too often. But every now and then, the need arises for someone to share something that exists in the pit with someone else. If you're that person, if you're with someone who invites you into their world, into their pit, and remember, how do they do that? Well, they don't talk about the run-of-the-mill stuff anymore. They bring up something very meaningful to them. It could be a divorce they're going through. It could be a death in the family, the loss of a job, financial difficulties, a broken heart, an ended relationship. Whatever it is, they're bringing it up and it's going to be meaningful. So an opportunity is presented. An opportunity where the space between the two of you can be used in a very meaningful and effective and helpful manner. But too often that space is corrupted. The opportunity is lost because you want to ask questions, or you want to give them advice, or you want to share an experience that you've been through and how you've got through it. Don't do that. Don't corrupt this space, what I call the God space, because really miracles do happen in this space. But when the space is corrupted with our questions, with our shared examples, again, people get frustrated. They don't feel like you're listening and they end the conversation and the opportunity's lost. You know, in a lot of ways, it's a bit disrespectful because when someone is sharing some traumatic event, and you start offering advice and solutions, it's sort of as if you're saying, look, you're not clever enough right now to come up with all these options that I see. So luckily for you, I'm here. I'm going to present them for you and you can take your pick and get yourself out of this crisis. It just doesn't work. It is disrespectful. All we can do with someone who's suffering like this is to listen to them and convey that we understand what it must be like for them, or we're striving to understand what the impact of this means to them. So, look, I don't want to be too critical. I know you mean well by what you're doing, but as I said, it just doesn't help. You're just following the training you've received in society, and that's why I'm doing these videos, because there is a better way, and the pastoral conversation is that way. But this brings me to a question that I've received from time to time from people who I've trained in using the pastoral conversation. And the question can best be summed up by an interaction I had with one of my chaplains. So one of my chaplains said to me, "So let me understand what you're saying. I go out in the hospital with the training you're providing me. I approach patients. I see if they'd like for me to sit down and have a conversation, and if they accept, I sit down with them. I listen to them respectfully, and then if an invitation comes to jump in their pit because they've brought up something meaningful, then I enter into their pit, and in that space I listen and I respond using empathic responses. Responses that indicate that I hear you, I understand what this is like, or I'm striving to understand what this is like. And when they determine the conversation is ended, I leave that person's pit and I go and try and repeat the same thing with another patient." And I said, "Yes, that's it. Well done." And they said to me, But can't we do more? Can't we get them out of their pit? It just doesn't seem like the pastoral conversation is enough. And I said, but David, what if their pit is the loss of a child 30 minutes ago or 30 years ago? How do you get them out of that pit? What if they've just received the terminal diagnosis? How do you get them out of that pit? What if they were told they'd be in hospital for 2 weeks, but it's been 2 months because they picked up an infection and the doctors can't seem to get control of it, and their whole professional and personal life is going down the drain? How do you get them out of that pit? I said, David, do you see that we don't have the power to do that? We don't have the power to get people out of their pit, to fix their problems, to fix their lives. We don't have that power. Guys, I've come to see that the pastoral conversation is enough. And you have to trust that it is enough. It works. I've seen that over the years. At the very least, people are comforted when they're heard and understood. At the very least, people have said to me, I don't feel so alone anymore. I don't feel so isolated. Someone finally understands. You see, that's comforting at the very least. But at the other end of the spectrum, the pastoral conversation, that space that you create between the two of you in the pit, it's transformative. I've seen people literally look 20 years younger after having the opportunity to vomit out something that they've carried for so many years in many cases. I had a lady recently who was 90 years old who told me that at the age of 20 she committed a great crime, and she's carried that for 70 years because she said to me her husband never wanted to talk about it and she was too embarrassed to share it with anyone else. 70 years, and finally she could unburden herself and share this wound with at least one person. So I know this works. And you know what? For people who are thinking, I need to do more, there has to be more, I ask, well, what are the options? Tell me what there are. You know, instead of trying to help someone by fixing or mending or offering a platitude, do what works. The pastoral conversation works when you contain all of those normal elements and just listen and convey to someone that you're hearing them, that you understand them. It's so powerful. It's so powerful. So what I'm going to say is practice the elements of the pastoral conversation. Practice again containing those elements that we use in our every other day conversation, our social conversation, if you recall. And when the invitation comes, contain all of that stuff and listen and empathize. Trust that it's enough. I know that it is. And the more you practice, the more you'll come to see how powerful the pastoral conversation is. And like I say to my chaplains, don't worry about the platitudes, the fixes, the solutions. Everyone else in this person's life will be offering them those things. It's not like if we don't do it, no one else will. Everyone else will. Let us be the ones that don't do that. Let us be the ones that just listen and try and convey that we understand, or we're striving to understand, what the impact of this situation in your life is, what it's having on your life right now. Let's do that. And if we do that, then we're offering them a gift they're not getting anywhere else. We're offering them a beautiful gift. And that's what the pastoral conversation is. And we'll stand out because no one else is doing this. Everyone else is trying to fix, to offer platitudes, Bible passages, all of these things in an attempt to try and make you feel better and them feel better. Let's stand out from the crowd and practice the elements of the pastoral conversation. Now there's more to come. Don't worry, I'll keep posting. Please, if you have questions, put them in the comments. I promise I'll answer them. Again, thank you for your time today. I'll see you next time. God bless. Bye.